Hey, welcome to the September 10th public information meeting on the RSU 14 withdrawal. The couple of things on how the meeting is going to work. If people have questions, there's the call-in number that was on the website that puts you on there and then what will happen is when Sue, when we get finished with the presentation, Sue will then go through phone number by phone number, and uh, people can ask the question that they've got. We'll answer that, and then uh, move on to the next one after that. So we'll keep moving through as we need to in order to get people's questions out there. So what is the code that they have to press in order to raise their hand? Star 9?
It's star 9, yes.
So if someone has a question on their phone, just press star 9. That will actually, on Sue's board, it will raise a hand, so she'll know that you have a question. Okay, so the way the meeting is going to run tonight, we'll start off with our PowerPoint presentation on where we're at and things like that. And after we finish that, then we'll go into the question session. But for people out there, the people that are at the meeting tonight, we have Teresa Sadak, we have Kate Lavalier, we have Mark Eastman, we have Dan Stockford, and in the studio we have Joe Bruno and Marshall Bullock. So when the questions come up, depending on what the question is, we'll pass that to have the person most appropriate for that to answer the question. So, Joe, if you're ready to start the PowerPoint, we can get that part started.
Okay, thanks, Rolf, and welcome to everyone who's listening. Hopefully, you're all watching this on the video stream and see the presentation. So Raymond's going to vote this November. It's an important choice for the education of pre-K through grade 12 students. Raymond has been part of the RSU 14 with Wyndham for the past 10 years. But before that, we were also part of an SAU with Wyndham dating back to the 70s from what I remember. This process was brought forth by Raymond citizens who believe that Raymond will have more control, a better educational opportunity for students, and a return to when Raymond was a single-member school unit. And what are the reasons for withdrawal? One is that Raymond is once again in charge of their future with their own school committee. Currently, Raymond is in a minority position on the RSU board. Raymond's members do not have enough votes to stop or overturn any decisions on Wyndham initiatives.
I can't see that.
You look at the Wyndham initiative for the bus garage that Raymond taxpayers pay for, but get no return from since buses are kept in Raymond, and Raymond drivers do not get to use the locker room in that facility. Wyndham needs middle school space for students, yet they refuse to use space available in Raymond, choosing to lease portables instead at a cost to taxpayers. It demonstrates that we are a one-way RSU and not taking a holistic approach to utilizing available space. Withdrawal will protect Raymond schools when budgets get challenging and consolidation gets proposed. We functioned very well as a standalone unit in the past. Raymond will maintain school choice and still have a contract with Wyndham, so students can continue to attend school there. The budget committee of the withdrawal process believes Raymond can add pre-K while reducing costs. And how did we get to this point? Wyndham wanted to build a new middle school and not send students to Raymond Jordan Small Middle School. Raymond taxpayers were going to have to pay for the middle school. The RSU board was looking to close down Jordan Small Middle School as an option. An agreement was reached between Raymond Select Board and the RSU. Raymond would pay a lesser percentage of total costs since our total students as a percentage was less than what we were paying in costs. Any new construction would be paid by the town where the construction was taking place. Wyndham would pay any new construction or repairs for anything in Wyndham, and Raymond would do the same. Wyndham decided to build a new garage for public works and lease part of that garage to the RSU for bus storage and maintenance. Indirectly, the taxpayers of Raymond were going to be subsidizing a new garage built in Wyndham for the town, not the RSU. The RSU purchased modulars to use instead of sending students to Jordan Small Middle School. The Raymond Select Board asked to meet with the RSU board and their attorney. They were told there would be no meeting and no questions were answered as to the scheme of building this new garage. This caused a petition to be taken out and a vote on withdrawal to occur. So what happens post-withdrawal? Raymond will guarantee current staffing levels and allow all staff to continue with their current benefits. The budget for withdrawal provides for a school resource officer and free breakfast and lunch for all K through 4 students. It also includes all programs currently at RSU 14. Cost sharing contract is up for negotiation right now. Currently, it is at 65% Wyndham, 35% Raymond. Raymond pays a higher share financially than is the proportion of students, meaning that Raymond doesn't have 35% of the students in the school district. Raymond's share is well over $10 million and growing. Raymond will continue to pay more because of our state property valuation. If Raymond votes to withdraw, maybe there will be a sense of community and parents and community members will volunteer more time in the school district. If Raymond votes to withdraw, a new school board will be voted on in January to prepare for a July 1st start date. Wyndham High School will be the school of guaranteed acceptance, and I believe that is for the next 10 years. There will still be school choice available to Raymond students. To date, 39 school units have withdrawn from their districts and are operating their own LEAs. There will be a sufficient budget to hire staff in order to ensure an appropriate transition. And here are some major budget points.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. And thank you for allowing me to be here. I would like to preface any of my comments by saying that this is not a zero balance number budget. This budget is taken directly from the RSU 14 approved budget in April of 2020 as approved by their board of directors. Our process was to glean out the numbers that applied directly to Raymond and put those in our budget. We did not decrease anything that was entitled to Raymond or assigned to Raymond, but we have made increases. Now I'll go through the major budget points. The secondary costs, including special education for those secondary students, has been reduced from the estimated total tuition to the state tuition rate. The school choice, meaning that students will have a choice to go to North Yarmouth or Hebron or Poland or wherever they'd like to go, that remains in effect. The differential for 2019-20 financial year cost the town of Raymond $10,000 to provide that service. That was well funded. There's $140,000 added to this budget for a school resource officer for both campuses. today's day and age, we felt that it was appropriate to add this cost in. This will take budget approval to be finalized. And I think there are plenty of Cumberland County sheriffs out there that would love this assignment. I've worked in the school system for 13 years. We had 3 different resource officers, and they were more than happy to come into the schools. The third one is $180,000 has been added to the budget for.
It's not gas, he measured. He said he has 10 feet either end. It will be tight, but they.
Somebody unmuted their phone.
Okay. I'm sorry. There's been $180,000 added for nutrition to provide free lunch for K4 students. This is a gross number. There is no way for us to measure at this point in time the free and reduced impact to that number. This includes meals at the USDA amount of, I believe, $4.54 per student per day, and that's carried out for a year. I threw in a small absentee number to that, but that is a gross number. That number will come down probably at least half when we finalize the free and reduced program. I can't quite see it now. The fourth point is the budgets as submitted to Raymond administration remain fully in effect. I want to stress this point. Raymond administration sent to their RSU board of directors their budget. Those were identified in the RSU version 9 as cost centers 51 and 71. We made no adjustments to that budget other than increasing each by 3.5% to take them from FY 2021 to FY 21-22. And in the RES budget, there is a small reduction which represents costs that were told to me that would be security enhancements made to that building. So there's a little bit of a decrease in RES. No other changes have been made, no staffing changes, no program changes. It is verbatim from what was presented to the RSU 14 board version 9. Subtractions have been made from the RSU V9 maintenance and facilities budget to account for those non-recurring costs which will be expended in FY21, and that's the $109,000 roughly. Those are security enhancements, plus it also takes out the maintenance garage down in Wyndham. Number 6, the additions to staff have been partially carried to the pre-withdrawal expenses. There are 3 anticipated staff hires that will need to be completed before July 1, 2021. That is a special ed director, 030 licensed, a superintendent, 010 licensed, and a business department. The business office will be in the RES building. The major portion of the technology will be controlled by the town. The school board costs, I assumed, for lack of a better number, 5 members for the board. It could be 7. I think it gets cumbersome over 7, but 5 members was used for budget purposes, and the stipends and insurances are figured in that cost. The pre-K is an interesting one. Pre-K assumes 20 students, 5 of which are identified, and 3 staff. I understand that the RSU 14 this year is putting 32 pre-K students at RES, 8 of which were assigned to Raymond slots. My budget calls for 20 students, and that's divided into an AM program and a PM program. 10 students in each program, a lead teacher in each program, and an assistant in each program. That assistant can be 1 person or it can be 2 people. It can be a part-time person in the morning and a part-time in the afternoon, whatever they choose. But the budget numbers have been based on 10 students in the morning, 10 students in the afternoon, and 3 staff. There'll be no longer any shared employees. That was made quite clear to us very early on in this program, in this process. I understand that we have two shared employees. I've made arrangements in the budget to increase their salaries to a full-time amount to allow them to choose whether they want to come to Raymond or not. If they choose not, then there is money in the budget to support a new hire in that category. I think that we can switch on to the next slide. Okay, which is what the budget looks like. $132,000 for pre-K. Raymond Elementary School is 1.8 million. Jordan Small, 1.7. And again, I want to stress that those two numbers are directly from Raymond administration with two very minor changes. Secondary tuition. This reduces the cost of us sending students to Wyndham High School from their student cost to the state tuition cost rate. This year it's 10.7 thousand. Next year it's anticipated to be about 11,500, I'm sorry, per student. I've also factored in a 17% ratio to that number to allow for special education. I believe that accounts for 33 students. It's frankly none of our business who those students are. We used an estimate to get to that number. That brings our tuition to $2.4 million for high school students. That also includes the $10,000 to $15,000 for other placements, Hebron Academy, North Yarmouth, whatever it might be. The co-curricular is an item that's required by the state for us to disclose, and that is stipends for co-curricular activities in Jordan Small mostly. The security of $140,000 is the quote we received from Kevin Joyce on what it will cost us to put a SRO in the campus. That is the first year cost. That cost will go down to $95,000 to $98,000 for years number 2 and 3. Assuming that the school board approves that program, that will be the cost. And again, I need to stress that he would not hire off the street or newly trained officer for that job. That he would promote from within. The technology, most of that is from what we have determined to be an appropriate level of technological equipment and software as designed by our Woodbury Associates teams. There is school laptop information in there, but most of it is what we think we need to run a good technology system. That includes a website, classroom, everything we need. It also includes software needed to run the business side of it. CIA is curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And this is a category that assists the educators with the curriculum design and instruction. The assessment would be the state and federal required assessing programs. MEAs are one. NEWAs is another one. It also includes in that category, for lack of a place to put it anywhere else, is gifted and talented. The nutrition we've talked about before, that is a gross number. That will come down substantially when free and reduced are brought into it. School board is estimated 5 people, stipends, and insurance, mostly liability insurance. Office of a superintendent, this is a new hire. This is assuming a 3/5 superintendent. I am aware of a 2/5 superintendent position that's open in the area, so one superintendent could have a 5/5 job in 2 systems. This is salary, benefits, and cost of operating a small office. The business office, that's for one school business person. The software is being run up in the technology department for that person to operate grading systems, attendance systems, all the necessary computer information that's needed to run that school. Operation and maintenance of buildings, that's a standard number that came right out of RSU 14 version 9 budget. I made a 3% adjustment or 3.5% adjustment to that to get it to bridge the fiscal year. Special education is another one. That came right out of version 9. The special ed includes all programs that are in Raymond now: PT, OT, speech, psych, etc., etc. For those of you that can read the RSU version 9 budget, there are, when you look at that budget, there are numbers to the extreme left-hand side of the document. There are a series of 6 numbers, 1000 dash 0000 dash so forth and so on. The 5th sequence of those numbers is for 100 is Raymond Elementary and 110 is Jordan Small. And if you go through the special ed version 9, you will see where the special ed programs are being allocated. Because we took that from V9, we did not run a line item budget. We didn't think that was necessary because it was already done. There's no reason for us to reinvent the wheel. So that was dealing with special ed. I personally have 10 years experience in the special ed field, and I know what needs to be done in there. Student transportation is the buses. I understand there's a question about maintenance on the buses. We have a maintenance team in town. We may need to hire another person through the town to deal with that. If not, the buses will go to an outside agency. But we are capable of doing that. The drivers are as they are now. There's no reason to change. We have not budgeted for any change in the drivers. We will consider, or have the board consider, a transportation manager to do that. The Versatrans computer program is in the technology budget. Additions to staff, these are the 3 positions that I've talked about earlier, the superintendent, the special ed director, and the business manager. Those will be costs, these are costs after the budget. And these would be an increase by 1 in maintenance, an increase by 1 in, or increase by 3 in administration, and that's on the next page, but I'll get into that. I'm sorry, 2 in special education, 1 in facilities, 1 in transportation, 1 in technology, and 1 in food services. The theory would be those positions are open and allocated financially. It would be up to the board and the superintendent to fill those positions, but those would not take effect until after July 1. So, and the contingency is just a kind of a cover a little bit. That's in case I made a mistake, I think. So the projected expenditures are $10,694,000. The projected revenues, the carry forward will come back to us, I believe, from RSU 14 surplus account. And the state funds represents 45% of the special ed. Raymond is in a position not to take advantage of any federal programs. We're too much of a wealthy community. And I may be corrected on that by the people that were on the committee. I was not, but they could address that later. So the local funds, the cost to the town of Raymond is budgeted to be 9.830, 794. So if we can go to the next page. the current budget position, the town of Raymond now pays $10.7 million for all schools. The increase to the town of Raymond averaged over the last 6 years at 4.7%. Carrying that forward, next to the year 21-22 will be 11.3 million. Estimated budget after withdrawal savings are in secondary education, which will be paid at the state rate. No payments for adult education. The Katahdin School, there was a lot in the superintendent and assistant superintendent's office that was taken out, and there was a lot in facilities that just had nothing to do with the town of Raymond. So the cost is anticipated to be $9.5 million. Suggested add-ins for board approval is, again, we've talked about the resource officer and the free breakfast and lunch. That assuming board approval, that's brought in. So the total budget request for 21-22 to the town of Raymond would be $9.8 million. The estimated savings is $1.7 million. I believe that equates to almost 2 mils. The anticipated 9 additions to staff, you can see are on the bottom of that page. 3 in administration, facilities, technology, special ed, transportation, food services. Technology, I want to go through a little bit. The hire for technology would be what I call a help desk. He or she would be in the school themselves, helping kids navigate through the systems. What the teachers can't handle, he would handle, or don't want to handle, he or she would handle, and make minor repairs to it. But I would like to make it clear that the heavy lifting on technology would be done by the town's technology staff, mainly for security reasons. Special ed we talked about, that's pre-K, 1 in transportation, and 1 in food service. So I think with that, I'll turn it back to you, Joe, and we'll go from there.
And now if you have any questions, use the raised hand feature or *9 on your phone, and that will get you in the queue. And hopefully the appropriate people are on to answer your questions.
I can't do *9 or raise my hand, but I do have some questions. I don't know.
Yes.
If you want to put me in the queue, I just somehow needed to let you know.
Okay, go ahead, Kate.
Okay, thank you. So thanks for that presentation. It was a little hard to see through Zoom, but did my best. So I just wanted to get back to a few things here. The biggest question I have is the saying that we're adding pre-K. It was mentioned, I think Joe put that in his presentation, that we were adding pre-K to this when we actually have pre-K for this school year, so that's incorrect. My next question is that we are looking to have a half-day pre-K, which if you look at a lot of the research out there, I would love to hear why you chose half-day pre-K. I happened to do some work at the statewide level on helping out kiddos from birth to getting into pre-K. And
Kate,
half-day pre-K.
Would you like us to answer these individually, or would you like to bundle them?
Well, no, I'm going to just talk about the benefits of full-day pre-K so that the public knows that we are losing full-day
I believe
pre-K
that I
work,
prefaced my
so.
comments on that by saying that this is strictly a school choice. I'm not advocating for one or the other. I am suggesting that we budgeted for 20 rather than 8, which is the Raymond allocation now.
All right, so your budget also is $100,000 less than what we have now. So you're looking at part-time employees, or possible part-time employees.
No.
Again, you're looking at, excuse me, I am still talking, thank you. You're looking at part-time employees, you're looking at a half-day program, which I'm wondering if that is for cost saving, which is actually not good for our kids. 73% of families in the state have both parents that are working. Half-day pre-K does not work out for them. I know districts in this state that have half-day, they can't even fill them. So that's a detriment. So I would love to hear why it's $100,000 less than what was budgeted. We haven't seen a budget. For some reason, we're not being able to see this full budget that you've put together, so we can't even compare things. You just can't tell me that we haven't taken anything away when you have. You've taken away some staff members. You've taken away full day pre-K, which is a big deal for me.
I think you
I
missed.
would love to hear your justification why we are not posting the full budget.
Okay. Number one, you already have a full budget. That's version 9, RSU 14, approved by you and your board on April 2020. You have the line item budget.
I have my school, I have the RSU 14 budget.
That's where the information came from.
Okay, so then where is our Director of Community Connections? Lynette, she works at the high school. She does a lot of work with Jordan Small Middle School on career exploration for the kids. I would love to see where in your budget you have her budgeted, because that would be a position that we would be losing. Unless everything is staying exactly the same like you're saying.
I'm not aware of a Director of Communications.
It's not communications, the Director of Community Connections. So
not
she actually, before pre-COVID, was bringing Jordan Small Middle School students on which they were doing job shadows. They were learning all sorts of things about careers.
Then
They
if
were
that's
trying
the
to
case,
figure out,
she's in the special ed budget.
it's not a special ed line. That's what I'm saying though. You're not showing us the budget that is proving this, that is saying where these people are. So where is she in this budget that you have put together? Because that would be something that I would imagine people would not want to lose.
Let's move on.
You're not answering the question. You can't just move on without answering the question.
I have carried it not by individual positions, but it is in the special ed budget. That's where I
She's
carried
not
it.
in the special ed budget. She was in the superintendent's budget, which you actually said that you took a lot out of the superintendent's budget because it didn't apply to Raymond.
Yeah.
So that is most likely gone from our budget. So that means our students in middle school will not get career exploration
Okay, let's
opportunities.
understand the process here. The process is I've set up a budget for 21, 22. There will be a board in place to make adjustments of that probably by February at the latest. If they choose to make adjustments to that, then that's fine.
So then we can't put a number out there to people because that number could change.
How much are we talking about?
The new board.
How much are
yeah.
we talking about?
You can't.
So that
put-
number could change. So I really have, as a member of the Raymond Withdrawal Committee, I have a real issue with putting a number out there that we're telling people is less than what they're paying now. When we ask you to justify where these positions are, you're saying that the board that will be voted in, that you have no idea who that will be, is going to make that decision. So there's no guarantee that it's less on taxes. I also would like to know the 2 full-time employees that are currently part-time in the district that will now be full-time. I'd like to actually know what those job positions are.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
If I might step, if I follow your logic, Kate, you cannot guarantee from the RSU 14 board anything because the board could change anything at any minute anyway, so your budget is meaningless.
Right.
Okay, so then our budget's meaningless. So then we need to not tell the town members that this is what the budget will be and that the taxes will be less, because that is meaningless. You just said it, Paul. Then our budget's
I just
meaningless.
said your RSU 14 budget is meaningless because you can change it at whim, is what you have just told me.
So then I have a big issue with sending out what the budget will be if it is essentially meaningless, especially
So how do
when
we have
people
an
can,
RSU
excuse me,
budget that's not-
Rolf,
whoa,
Rolf, I'm
whoa.
talking. Especially when people cannot say what these where these positions are, if they have been factored into that. If we are saying, and we are saying it in the PowerPoint, and I have a right to be upset with this as a member of the Withdrawal Committee, because I am part of that PowerPoint. So if we are saying on this PowerPoint that nothing has changed, all services are the same, yet no one can tell me where the Director of Community Connections is in the budget, and that it depends on the elected school board. They have control of that. Then we are not telling the truth.
I need to answer something. Can you unmute me, Sue, on this?
You're on.
5411.
5411. Wait,
No, we can actually hear you now.
you can? Okay. Kate, were you or were you not on the committee for programs that you wanted into the school?
Right.
I was, thank you.
Did you give that position to Marshall to be added in?
I
Yes
was on
or
that
no?
program. I absolutely
Yes or
was
no?
on that position. Thank you. And I
Did
actually
you give
said,
him that position, the Director of Community Connections? Did you give that to Marshall to be added in there?
I said
Yes
we
or no?
wanted exactly what we have now.
Did you give him that position?
I said I wanted exactly what we have now.
Does Randy
So you didn't give it to him?
Okay, let me ask.
It's what we have now. I said I want what we have now. That's what people
Now,
said in
does
meetings. They
does
want what we
Randy-
have now.
Does Randy Crockett know that that position exists?
Yes.
Okay. Marshall worked with Randy Crockett in developing that budget. Therefore, if Randy knew it exists, then he carried that over there too. What you're saying is.
It's not in Randy's budget.
Randy
That's what
Crockett
you're not
didn't know he was
understanding.
doing
It's not in Randy's budget. It's in the superintendent's budget. And it was just said that a lot was taken out of that budget because it did not apply to Raymond. I'm assuming parents that have a student at Jordan Small Middle School would like to know if that was one of the things that was taken out of the budget. I
Okay,
would
so
like
let's
to know
add it
that.
back in then. Marshall, we can add that back in as one of the things we're missing.
I will take a look at the superintendent's RSU 14 version 9 budget and take 30% of that position and put it back in the budget.
So that's good. We'll hire someone at 30% time. Lots of people
Well,
wanna work at
36%.
30%. A lot of people want to work part-time. I would love to also know the 2 full-time employees that are currently part-time, what those 2 positions are that you're adding as full-time.
Are you talking about the people that are split?
Yes, I would like to know what those
I
are.
am not going to discuss personnel issues on an open meeting.
Okay.
I have made arrangement, you know where they are as well as I do. I will not pull out names in a public meeting. We have 2 staffs that I believe go from here to Manchester and back and forth. There's enough money in the budget to allow them to come here full-time if they choose.
And then I would also just like to hear about special ed. I know there was a meeting a while ago where you had talked about some cost cutting there, which there hasn't been, but you were talking about contracting out services. Is that what you did in your budget? Because again, we haven't seen if there's an actual
No,
full-time
no,
OT, PT.
I asked the question about specifically OT, PT, speech, psych, whether they were contracted employees or not. And the budget reflected to me that they are full-time.
Yes.
They are employees. If they choose not to come up here, then we have enough room in the budget to hire our own,
As full-time.
if it's needed. That's not my decision, that's a board decision.
So is it budgeted as part-time or full-time
It's
right now?
budgeted
then?
at full-time. Take a look at
Okay.
take a look at the budget.
I can't take a look at what you did for a budget, Marshall, because you have not shared that publicly.
It's
I
everything
can't
that
take a look at it. I
you,
can't take a look at it and compare it to what we currently have as a school board, as a RSU 14 budget, because you have not shared that.
no, you have it all in version 9.
I-
All I did was
I
pull it
have
out.
our budget. I do not have what you have put together and what you have pulled over. I actually really don't understand why when we push you for it, you're not showing it to us.
I'm trying to tell you that it's already out there. It's out there on version 9
Okay,
in
please
100
please
and
email
110.
me your copy of it.
Fine, take a look at version 9.
So what did you take out of that? Because I can look at version 9, but there's stuff that's been taken out of it. There was stuff taken out of parts of it.
Not in special ed. Not in special ed at all.
And then my last question is on my concern about losing Title I funding. So I guess, are we just going to pay for that stuff out of instead of receiving those federal funds, because Raymond will not qualify, are we just looking at paying that out of our tax dollars? Is that something else that might just go to the school board that gets voted and taxes might go up, or the budget might go up?
I can't answer that, Kate. I'm going to defer to somebody else because I was not on the negotiating committee.
Mark, I think you've got some information on that. I think you have to unmute Mark.
Yeah, Kate, actually, we addressed this in the withdrawal agreement. Am I being heard?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Okay. In the withdrawal agreement, we addressed it, and Wyndham has agreed to give the percentage share of those federal funds to Raymond. Did you hear that?
I did, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
My apologies if I
Oh, no worries.
missed that in the withdrawal. I'm happy. I have many other concerns, but I'm happy to let other people speak.
So, Mr. Chair, we do have one person with a raised hand.
Okay.
And I just asked them to unmute. There we go.
Hi, yes, this is Caitlin McCase. Thank you all again for your work on this. I have a couple of comments. One, I just really want to urge, it's a clunky system to watch via YouTube. I actually couldn't find where I was supposed to watch it, and I'm not a complete Luddite, and I couldn't find it on the Raymond website, and then to have to call in separately, it's clunky, so it would be better done via Zoom. So I just want to encourage, since everybody is better if more people can call in and hear this information. So I want to encourage a better system for these informational meetings moving forward. I just think they're really important. Also, just wanted to add on to what Kate said about pre-K. I have a personal stake in this, as do many working parents in Raymond. We were grateful to hear that there was going to be a full-time pre-K this year. We applied, we were lucky, there's a lottery, we got in. We actually ended up, I understand there's a wait list. We ended up giving up our spot for Lucy because we decided to go full-time remote for everybody, and it just didn't seem to make sense to take up a spot when there was a wait list. But I have another daughter coming down the pike for next year, and it wouldn't be an option for us and many other families I know if it's part-time. I'm just thinking through who's going to leave work early, me or my husband, and neither one's an option. So I just encourage you to think about a full-time pre-K in the budget is really what parents need, and students as well. And it almost seems I just don't think it's effective, and I think the data shows it's not effective to do a half day. I also wanted to comment on. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I take that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I can't see you. My name is Marshall Bullock. The budget allowed for 20 students, up from 8, and it went for 1 full-time lead teacher and 2 assistant teachers. It doesn't matter to me, and I don't think anybody else, whether that's a full-time program or not. The point was you had at least 1 to 5 on student coverage, and 5 of those 20 would be identified. So you have another layer there. If the school board just decides to go full-time on that, great. But it's out there as two part-time and 1 full-time, or 3 full-time. It doesn't matter. The money is there for all 3 positions.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry, what do you mean by identified?
On the spectrum.
5.
On the spectrum.
Oh, got you. Thank you for that clarification. That's really helpful. I also wanted to comment, in the presentation, there was a note that said that this could possibly cause an increase in parent and community involvement in the school. And I can just say I've been very impressed with the parent and community involvement I've seen in our few years there. From just everything we've done, there's always lots of parents who are there volunteering. And so I just don't think that that is not a problem that needs to be solved. We got 3 outdoor classrooms erected at Raymond Elementary School this fall. We had full sports community. We had Eagle Scouts from Raymond. We had Eagle Scouts from Wyndham. Everybody out there, local parents were helping as well. And it was just, there is already significant community involvement in the district. So I just wanted to add that. And then also just wanted to echo concern that if we can't, and I understand that a final budget would be determined by the future school board, but the budget is obviously is going to be a point, is an important piece of how people are making their decision on how to vote for this. And, you know, I don't know which positions to look for that might be missing. And it would be really helpful, as has been stated, to show the data behind this PowerPoint, because that the community connections position that was already referenced, the average person does not know to go and look at that. Thankfully, Kate does, but it would be incredibly helpful to see the line by line of what is included, because we can't figure out what could be missing from the budget and how much more expensive it might ultimately be to get to where we are now. So I just wanted to encourage you to make that data available. Thank you.
Whoever had their hand raised, would you raise it again? I hit lower hand instead of unmute. I'm sorry. Thank you. And I believe you have to hit *6 possibly.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Alyssa Messer, and I'm coming to the meeting tonight after having watched a portion of the meeting last week with just a couple questions, and then the presentation presented a couple questions that I needed to get some reference points on, if I might. And pardon me, I'm not involved as heavily as others are in details. So I kind of wanted to back it up a little bit and just ask the question, according to the presentation, that we have been in the RSU for 10 years, and my involvement has been during that 10 years. That's when my kids have been in the school here. And it's my understanding this is the second attempt to withdraw from the RSU. Can someone give me a reason as to what the difference is now versus the first attempt, just for my understanding of why this is again? Is it the three reasons that were presented at the top, the bus garage, Wyndham needing a middle school, and the community sense? Is that the new things that were evolving?
Teresa, you want to take this? You want me?
Sorry, I was muted and I couldn't unmute is what it was. What happens is when we did this a couple years ago, and I guess I want to correct something too. There's comments that are going around that this was voted on and turned down then. No, we decided as a board to stop the withdrawal process because we did get an agreement with Wyndham is what it is. And now I started it up. I'm the one that took the petition out, is because I don't feel like the agreement that we had come to is being honored by their town garage, by getting modulars when we could be sending kids to Raymond.
Okay, I just needed to understand where that was coming from and kind of the presentation. The second part on that is, I understand I took a survey, and I'm trying to remember exactly when it was that I took, that was sent out to the community to say, hey, what's your feedback? I believe it was your committee that produced that survey. Is that accurate?
Caitlin LaCase did, yes. We did. You guys did do a survey.
So what do we know from what the community said as far as their feedback of is moving forward with this, or concerns? Do we know like the top concerns on both sides from them? What's that information?
I wrote down a lot of the concerns. To me, it was mixed across the board. As well as a lot of it was budget. a lot of it was unknown. I'm actually trying to pull up the actual survey that I had on here. I don't think it was as big as response as what I was hoping for. I don't know if someone else can give feedback on that too.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm looking for it on here.
Should that be something that we make public?
We can. I mean, the whole board members that got it, because I sent it to the whole board, the RSU withdrawal board.
Yeah, no, I've seen it, but I'm wondering if that's
Okay.
something that we should put on the website.
Yep, that's fine.
There's no names.
I mean, can I, it's Joe.
I guess
Bruno.
that
Can I
does kind
speak?
of lead me into the question that I have is, or I guess more of a comment that I have. I have a big concern. You know, I like to make choices with factual information, not necessarily opinions of things. And I guess I'm having a hard time after watching the first meeting and talking about the budget and saying, okay, this is what we're proposing, but not being able to see a line item. That's just how I operate, and being able to say, okay, this is what we have now, this is what we're moving to, so that I know, okay, yeah, that would do it, or wait a second, I have some major concerns about what this is, and then bringing it forth. And I have a real sense just in these two meetings, I'm not long-term in this process, it's a very hostile sense. And so I'm wondering, that makes me feel very uncomfortable as just a Raymond voter and a Raymond parent. Like, why not share everything if this is such a positive movement? Why not put it right on the place, RSU withdrawal on the website, so people can go up there and see? I guess it makes me concerned with such the way this is being presented, and it feels like a backlash a bit about why not having a budget. And then I guess following that up, I just would like to make the request, can we please have a line-by-line budget? I know that you've said just a minute ago that it's going to be the future board's responsibility. However, you're asking us to vote in November on something that's blind, really, and that makes me uncomfortable as a voter. I wouldn't go on anything else to a voter box and just vote without knowing details. I don't feel that's responsible as a citizen. So I guess that was more of a request to get a line item thing out there for us to see, because I see the words "nothing has changed" underlined in the presentation, but yet I heard on the last call you'll only have a 60% superintendent. So that is a change, and I don't know enough. That's why I want to see the line by line to say, okay, what is different? To ask more questions. Is this something we really need in Raymond, or is this not? So I guess I would request that. And then I just did want to, I can't pass by the sense of community quote. I just wonder, is this phrase from the committee member views, that there's a lack of community, or is that something that was pulled from the survey results?
Oh, her mic isn't working again.
Can't hear you, Teresa.
Alyssa, I can tell you as a parent at RES and as a committee member that I do not feel that there's a lack of community. My husband and I are actually very involved with the school and with the community and youth sports and in many areas. And I know going in to the school to pick up my daughter on days that there are lots of parents that are volunteering. I have neighbors that have volunteered. So no, I would, from my opinion, as the one member that has a child in the school, I would say no, there's lots of parent involvement and community involvement.
Okay, that kind of answered my question, because I was going to ask if these are people that are involved in the school currently, because I can say this as a person who led for 5 years a project for RES with a playground in the back with the U.S. military and Bill Hansen, our director of facilities. I can say that during that time of 5 years, I was astounded by the community effort of Raymond. We had Wyndham parents coming over and helping us get that done. Both Sandy Prince and Chris Howell have been nothing but supportive. The entire boards that I worked with, different boards through those 5 years, were remarkable, asking me challenging questions. But I can assure you we would not have had the funds as a solitary community to be able to put in the kind of playground that we did without the RSU. And the sense of community was not only felt by I'm just representing a team of people that did this for 5 years. There are multiple other parents that were involved with us. But I echo what was said earlier about the sense of community, and it was felt beyond the borders of our community. The military has contacted us since and said, wow, we were so impressed with what your community and the appreciation from your community and how involved so many people were. We've never really felt something like that to that extent. So I would really caution, I'd like to see just facts and not get too highlighted in the sense of community, because those of us that are there every day with our kids, we try to teach our kids that important sense of community. So therefore, we ourselves are involved in the sense of community. And I guess I would, you know, I am so thankful that we had the extended resources of the RSU to be able to provide an amazing background playground. And I'm so thankful to the parents that worked on that with me throughout both communities, Wyndham and Raymond, to make that happen for our kids and in our community. So I guess that's my last comment at this time. Thank you for your time.
Okay, there's one other person with a hand raised.
I would hope that that's me then. I'm not sure though.
I'm sorry, all I see is phone numbers.
Okay, yeah, well, so actually, this is Grace Levitt. So actually, that's my first comment and a request, is that hopefully some other system can be used to have these hearings. I appreciate that there's so many that you've scheduled, because I know you want to get information out, but this is even more difficult. I'm not even sure if I'm being heard here. This is even more difficult than the last time I dialed into one of the committee meetings, trying to manipulate the numbers. I had to dial into this 3 times, and I punched all the numbers in correctly according to what showed on my phone, but it wasn't connecting for some reason. I would suggest, at least, if you can't have a better system for the public to hear and ask comments, ask questions and make comments, that perhaps the directions could be written out, exactly what you need to do. I was trying to get on the Zoom meeting on Zoom, because that's what it says. But anyway, I'm hoping that this can be improved for the remaining meetings that you're doing online, so that people can actually ask questions and get answers. So I didn't hear the very first part of this meeting, so I'll have to wait till I see the recording once it's posted. But I did hear somebody just talking about the survey. I had asked about that survey whenever your last committee meeting was, prior to the meeting that you had when you set these dates. So it was at the end of August, I guess, sometime in there. I didn't check back in my calendar. So I really hope that the survey results will be posted so people can see what whoever responded to the survey, whatever it was that they said, rather than just sort of getting a sentence or 2 summary from somebody. And I also had asked at the last meeting about that budget. I think the response was it's 80 to 100 pages or something, and no one will read it, but I will read it. So please do post that. I'm talking about the line by line that I believe it was Marshall Bullock had a meeting back in maybe December, when he was going through, you know, what he was considering would be likely to be needed in terms of trying to figure out what the cost of this would be. And that would be a great document to share so people can see that level of detail, as I think a previous caller also mentioned. So if that could be posted, and I believe I already made that request. It was at the RSU 14 hearing that they had that I made that request. So I thought that would have already been done by now, but all that I've found is sort of a summary without a lot of detail. So again, I would hope that that could be shared so people could be as informed. Thank you.
Sue, there is someone that's on the phone that believes that they've raised their hand. I got a message from them. I don't know if you see another
Yeah,
hand
there's
up or
four,
not.
there's four more. Whoops, I'm sorry.
Okay,
There's
sorry,
four
just
more,
wanted to make
so
sure.
I'm
Thank
just
you.
taking them in order.
Okay, I thought you had said there was only one more, so I
There
just wanted
was,
to
and
make
then a
sure.
bunch jumped on.
Okay. Thank you.
So the next number, maybe it'll be easier if I read the number, is 6505033. And that one should be on me. Oh, no, that was Grace, I'm
That was
sorry.
just me, yeah.
Okay. So next is 2728064. Whoops, I'm sorry.
Hi, it's Jody Carroll. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for being available tonight and for all your work across the whole board. I've been asking questions digitally all week and had great response. Marshall, I just had one question for you. Thank you for your detailed responses to my questions this week. I believe this falls under the budget section, so I thought it would be prudent to ask now. The superintendent seems to be a concern as it relates to availability or eligibility for good quality superintendents at this time. Could you comment on how the decision was made to do a 3-5 time superintendent versus a full-time? I recognize the difference between 6 schools and 2 schools, and I have no experience with respect to what a superintendent would do, but I just, looking at the estimated savings without add-ins and wondering why the decision was made to go anything less than full-time with this proposal.
I'll start, Jody, but I'm going to ask Mark to come in at a later time. The 3/5 superintendent appeared to be the most logical choice because I don't think 2 schools with 400 students can support a full-time superintendent. I forget what they are now, but the state has a document called an ED 279, and that calls out the particular staffing requirements for that. 3/5 was also the superintendent we had before we merged. It seemed to be somewhat effective, although I understand that that person really spent 4/5 of their time and not 3/5. So with that comment, I'm going to move on to let Mark or somebody that was on the negotiating committee take the rest of it.
Mark, do you want to weigh in on that?
You're unmuted. There we go. I think I'm unmuted now.
There you go.
I think the discussion centered around keeping full-time principals.
Right.
2 schools, that would be critical to maintain that level of administrative support in each school. And those schools, the state talks about 300 being an optimum size of an elementary school. Particularly, you'd need a full-time principal. So keeping the 2 principals being the priority, thinking that a superintendent, a full-time superintendent with 2 other administrators would deviate from what is typical. I'm not saying you couldn't have a full-time superintendent, but in smaller units, 2/5, 3/5 is more typical because of workload, etc. When you're getting a lot of support from your administrators in your building. So that has been my experience around the state. In some cases, real small units have a superintendent 1 day a week. I mean, it's really up to the local citizens and the local school board what they would like to have. I find it difficult oftentimes to have a principal slash superintendent, because I think that, you know, so oftentimes the superintendent is drawn away to meetings and so forth and leaves the building unprotected. That's why I like the idea of having a principal in each building. And you know, going forward, the school committee may need to think more about this as we deal with this whole COVID thing, how that's all, you know, that's all going to play out. That's the X factor here. And I think superintendents across the state are struggling with that, whether they're superintendents, they're there 2 days a week or whatever. So something certainly the school committee should think about.
Jody, if I may piggyback on that, I actually had a conversation the other day with Steve Bailey, who is the executive director of the Maine Superintendents Association. And I asked that same question about a 3/5 superintendent, because I was concerned. I think no matter what, the job is essentially the same, and whether you're full-time or 3/5, there's lots of paperwork that still needs to be completed. There's lots of email that needs to be answered. I can't imagine a parent emailing a superintendent on a Thursday and not getting a response until Monday, let's say, because they don't work Thursday and Friday. So again, it really should be a full-time job. I think this is another one where we're looking at having the numbers less so that it looks a little bit better for when we put this out for taxpayers. So, and Marshall even just said previously it was a 4/5, and Mark even just said now in this current climate that most districts are looking at increasing the amount of time. So that would be one item that I would be concerned about, that when the school board comes in, the budget would go up. It's also very difficult to find someone who wants to work 3/5 of the time. The superintendent pool statewide is very, very minimal. We are incredibly lucky to have Chris Howell as our superintendent today, and as our RSU superintendent. I don't know if people saw it. He picked up a student that the transportation, with given everything that's going on with changing things around, he actually went to a student's house and picked them up and drove them to school, a little kiddo. We are incredibly lucky to have the superintendent that we have. And it really would worry me to get someone at 3/5, especially given the uncertainty that we are certainly facing in the years to come. School's not ever going to look like it used to in 2018-19. It just won't. And it does need to be a full-time job. So that's a concern of mine on the budget piece.
I would just say thanks for that, everyone. I guess I'm looking at sort of top level things, and it sounds like with good advice coming from Mark and Marshall and the team that you've got there, that could be something that would be considered. And what I'm taking from your answers is there is enough money in the budget for a full-time position, and certainly under good advisement that a new school board would consider that position to be full-time, given everything that's just been discussed. And so, you know, what I'm taking away from this part of the discussion is, hey, the budget's been done, there's margin there. If it's a position that is required to be full-time, given the climate and what Raymond needs, that can happen. And if that sounds fair, I'm going to take that as a success with this particular proposal.
I'd like to jump in and just add that is a very correct statement. The superintendent would be the first hire. The board would be coming in very shortly after that, and there's a good 3 or 4 months where I would work with the new board to set up what they think is an appropriate budget. I have set up what I think is appropriate at this time.
Great, thanks.
Jody, I guess I'd like to jump in there too and say, excuse me, I think Marshall has left some room in this budget to be able to add things in, for instance, for things that possibly might be left out. But the new board coming in may say, hey, we got a different arrangement we like to do. So it would be up to the parents to push for that to stay in.
I think that's where my concern comes in, was saying that we're saving ourselves $1.some-odd million, because that people are going to look at that number and assume that is what the budget will be. because that's the way it's being displayed. And I know there were thoughts about putting out mailers to people that would say this is what the budget will be, or this is what our estimated budget will be, when really we need to put a disclaimer on there that the school board, the new school board, should we withdraw, has the final say. Because that's honest. I mean, as two of you being on the board of selectmen, you would think you wouldn't want to put something out there that's not necessarily true. I just would hate to bait and switch and on folks. That's a really tough one to have out there if we keep defaulting back to the school board that gets voted in couldn't do the budget. Then why are we putting a budget out, I guess?
Well,
I think we did the best we could do, and that's what we're part to do. Go ahead, Paul.
There's a misnomer that we are responsible for the budget and the school board is responsible for the budget. The town of Raymond voters are responsible for the budget. They are the ones that are going to say yes or no at the end of the day on the budget. That gets passed that will be passed at town meeting. There is more control that is given at that point because that's a town meeting vote. Right now, quite frankly, the people in the town have no input on the RSU 14 budget. Yes, you have hearings, but 10 people show up, and then it goes to a referendum. And the fact is, Raymond as a whole could vote no. Wyndham outvotes us just by numbers, and so we have a budget that is pushed down our throat with very little input from the people. By bringing it back here, that gives more input from the town people through town meeting and the budget hearings and things like that, because it'll be reviewed by the Budget Finance Committee, so that there's actually more opportunities for them to weigh in than they have right now.
I just have issue with our PowerPoint presentation saying what the savings will be when we've just identified a few positions that we're looking at, already saying that the new school board should likely either increase time for or hire for. Again, that's in my mind, and if I'm in the minority of the townspeople that are on the call here, but in my mind, that's putting out a false sense of what the cost will be.
Kate, I ran some quick numbers during that one, and if we take the superintendent from 3/5 to 5/5, and we add in 36% of that person you said was at the superintendent's office, which I cannot find, by the way, that would come up to about $112,000 in addition to this budget. I have a contingency of $100,000 in there. So we're looking at a $12,000 difference on an $9 million budget.
Yeah. Now, so that eats into our contingency. Then what happens if we get some unexpected special ed costs? Do we feel pretty comfortable with a $1 million special ed budget and $100,000, actually now less than $100,000 in contingency?
You can play that game all day. I'm not going to do that.
Well, I'm asking you, Marshall. I'm asking your opinion. I'm not trying to play a game. I'm trying. The point of these meetings is to get public opinion and to get facts out. And you're actually. I mean, I have a child in the school, and now you're not answering my question that would either affect her. I get it. You don't have a kid in the school, so maybe you're not as concerned about it. I don't know. I'm trying to understand why you're saying I'm not playing that game. I'm asking a legit question. If you think $100,000,
we have $180,000 in food service. That I believe there's at least $80,000 there that won't be spent. When you go to free and reduced, that won't be spent. You have $100,000 in contingency. Even the town can't predict every single dollar that goes out. I've told you that it's $112,000 difference, and we have a $100,000 contingency. If you want to save some of the contingency, then it goes from somewhere else.
And just since you mentioned food costs, what happens when parents don't pay their food bill? We cannot deny a student food if the parent hasn't paid their bill. So there was a food shaming law that was passed. So there goes that $80,000. No. That's going to start to eat into that.
No. That's where the $100,000 is.
Okay, so what if, again, now let's say we get some students that have some
hold on.
very special needs.
No, it's my turn. It's my turn.
Okay.
My understanding of food services is it's revenue neutral. Is that correct?
We often have a balance that needs to be paid
No,
out
no, no,
of
no, no,
contingency
that's
because
not,
parents
that's
are
not what
not
I'm
paying.
asking. I'm asking,
I see what you're saying, that it's revenue neutral because people are paying, but you're assuming that everyone's paying and they don't all pay.
I understand that. I worked in special ed for a long time. I used to come out of my own pocket to pay kids for lunch. And I understand that. That's why I think the 180,000 is very high number.
I would hope so. I mean, we have an outstanding nutrition department right now, so I actually really want to do some good cost comparisons on where you come up with that number and what Jeannie Riley currently has. Because I can tell you, as a parent of a child, man, if they change the chicken nuggets the way that they're made, she's going to notice. So I'm hoping that I think it's wonderful to offer food to K4, but I hope it does not reduce the quality and the nutritional value of the school.
I can't speak to that.
No, but you put it in the budget, so I'm assuming you
Well, it's in the
budgeted
budget at
for
the
high
US
quality and nutritional food.
Which is
right?
at the USDA rate. I assume that RSU 14 follows the USDA rates.
Okay, we have 4 more of these meetings. I'll look into that.
Okay.
And just so you know too, preschool classrooms have to be capped at 16. So saying that there's 20 students, I mean, my guess is you're saying 10 in the morning and 10 in the afternoon when we've already put research out there that that's actually not as
Then if you
beneficial
choose to cut
kiddos.
that back to 16 students, that's fine.
So maybe we should stop saying that it's 20. We should definitely put an asterisk there that says that classrooms must be capped at 16. Just want to put, we're just trying to put truths out there.
Then that would, okay, we can do that.
Jody, were you finished?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
I guess
Jody.
I am.
Okay.
And my apologies,
No.
Jody.
So the next phone number is 576-5405.
Next.
You may, there. Are you there now?
Hi, King Charlotte Engelman. Hi. I have a couple questions. I apologize. My phone went in and out at the beginning, so I missed the first part. One item is we've talked a lot about positions that are going to be covered by people that are, and I'm pretty sure that we don't have anybody in the town who's not work capacity. So the expenses for extending that included in the budget?
I couldn't hear that, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Okay, I'll try again. Any better?
That's better, thank you.
Okay, we talked 2 questions. First is there've been a lot of positions that you've talked about being covered by people in the tech, be it technology or maintenance or things like that. And I'm pretty sure that there's nobody in our town office that's just hanging around only % of work. They're idle the rest of the time. So is any consideration given for that in the budget? If we say that the town is going to take care of the maintenance of the business, are we putting in there to hire another person? And if we're saying the town is taking care of the tech for the whole school system, do we have funds built in there to hire that position as well, in addition to anything else to the town that I haven't heard about?
Okay, I think I understand what you're saying, and what I think I heard was we have staff at town that is not fully utilized. Is that correct?
No.
What are you saying?
I meant you said that we're going to use town staff to do multiple different things for the school now, and I'm quite sure that that staff is being pretty well fully utilized by the town.
No.
No,
So
you're talking only
any considered
technology?
cost there?
I'm talking only technology. Only technology.
Okay, so the bus maintenance wasn't considered in there again?
It was, and we would hire somebody else if we need to help with the buses.
Right.
Because right now the
Okay,
mechanic
so,
department and the town.
okay, so are those items and any other that have been discussed but I haven't heard about, are those line items in the budget, the current proposed budget?
There's line items for Technology addition, staff addition, facilities, 1 addition, transportation, 1 addition, and food service, 1 addition. That money is in the budget.
Okay. My second question is more of a general thing. Currently, still, we have a voice on the board for the kids who are at Wyndham for high school. If we withdrew, wouldn't we lose that seat on the board in terms of what our kids' heights going to look like, or is there something different that would be going on?
Are you talking about a student representative on the board?
No. She's saying that we have members from
Raymond
Raymond. You have
Representative.
right on the school committee right now. So we won't have
Correct.
a voice
The
on
school
the
committee.
Wyndham School Committee is what you're asking about, right?
We kids leave 8th grade and we send hopefully at least half of them to Wyndham. We would have no say in what their height.
Well, we don't have a representative at NYA or Hebron or Waynfleet or CVA or any of those other school districts. It's not
However,
possible.
the difference would be that we would still be
There
charged
is
with
no
the special
difference,
ed
Kate.
costs for the students that go to Wyndham. So no, we would not have a seat related to 9 through 12 education at Wyndham High School, and we would also just not know what the special ed costs were too. Like if a student in Raymond were to go to Wyndham High School, because that's part of our agreement with them, is that we would pay their special ed costs.
No, that's
I
not.
don't believe it's like that when we go. If I'm wrong, please correct me.
Okay, I'm going to correct you now. In the discussion with Chris Howell, we took the tuition number and we added $10,000 for each student for 17% of the high school students to cover special ed costs. So they were considered. The special ed director hired for Raymond would also go into Wyndham to supervise all the IEPs and so forth and so on.
The fact of the matter is, we don't have school board members at every school we send Raymond kids to.
No, but if the vast majority, and especially for 50% of the kids, even if it seems it would be a real loss to the town to not be involved in those kids' high school experience, as by not having a seat on the school board that governs their high school education to head off to college.
Well, you're in a minority position right now, so do you really have a voice?
Yes, we do have a voice. I actually think all 3 school board members made it very clear
That was
we
a kumbaya
make
moment,
decisions
Kate.
for all of the students. We
Kate,
don't.
Kate,
the
let me
Wyndham
ask you.
kid-
Let me ask you, when they vote to shut down Jordan Small Middle School, you gonna feel the same way about kumbaya with all your other members of the school board?
You're assuming that there's a vote to shut down Jordan
There
Middle
will
School.
be
There's
eventually.
not. There's actually been 0 talks about that. They're putting money into Jordan Small Middle School. We've been putting money into it. It is
That
not
the
being
town
shut
of
down.
Raymond is gonna pay for.
We just updated boilers, where we did the roof. So no, and which the entire school board, which their majority, yes, they're Wyndham folks, but guess what? They voted to improve Jordan Small Middle School.
Because they had to. It's under their school system.
And you voted to improve Wyndham Schools.
Because
So there's no difference, Kate. This is not the Kate Levier show, by the way. You know,
I'm
we're
not
here
trying
for
to
the
make
public.
it the Kate Levier show. I'm just trying to
We're
get
here for the
information out there
public.
and facts
We're
out
trying
there.
to hear from the public. You and your friends are, asking questions about budgeting. When we voted to join the RSU, did anyone ask about the budget at that time? The answer is no. The answer was no. Was it in the best interest of Raymond to join the RSU? At that time, 10 years ago, it was. Right now, I'm not sure we're getting that same equal deal that we got 10 years ago.
I think my friends that are calling in, which some of them I actually have never met, but I think they're just concerned because they have children in the system.
Right. You tend to bring that up a lot, Kate. Like I'm some old fart who's never had a kid in the school system. I have been involved in the Raymond schools for a lot longer than you have, Kate.
I'm very different now.
I'm gonna jump in here. My turn. I guess I'm gonna say this. we have kids in the school. I understand that, Kate, but please stop throwing it out there to everybody else that you are the only person that has a child in the school. We all care about the kids in the school. Please understand that. And we also have, I think, as a duty to the rest of the townspeople in the town to say, hey, they've had families that have gone through the school and they have seen the school be good. They have seen the school consolidate. I have a very big concern that with this new middle school that might possibly come into Wyndham, that they're going to have to figure out how to pay for the cost of that thing. And before you came on the board, closing Jordan Small was one of the options to Wyndham getting a new middle school. They had 4 options on the table. And I don't know if you know about that, but every one of them considered closing Jordan Small school down and shipping all the kids down to Wyndham. You can't say, and you can't guarantee anything as far as, and I'm not being mean, but a new board member comes on, new people come on, and it's a different view. But Wyndham builds a new middle school, there is a very big possibility if Jordan Small is not being utilized, it can be closed down to save costs. And what would we really have a say then? What would that do to the town of Raymond? Because, and I'm not making this stuff up, that was on the table last time.
Oh, I remember, absolutely.
And that's one of the problems I had is, wait a second, this is what started the first original one. We've had 2 schools here, we have 2 schools here that need to be utilized. And I don't feel that we're an RSU. But please understand, you keep saying as far as the kids in the school and offering not healthy meals. I think some of these comments are.
I didn't say we were offering not healthy meals. I just wanted to hear about them. I wanted to hear about them.
Right, but you are making that kind of a jab. And I think in all fairness, for what Marshall has been doing and what we were tasked to do, it is a hard job. Nothing is perfect. Please understand that. And we did ask you to add the programs in, and I think Marshall has stepped up to the plate by adding in extra programs, like a resource officer, like the extra teachers, like the food program service, because you always see about kids that aren't getting the food and stuff like that. So I thank them for doing that, and Mark Eastman and these guys. But I think we guess have to respect each other, and we are on opposite sides. But please understand, we have had kids that have gone through the school when it was Raymond. And Raymond has a hell of a school. They really do.
Okay, this is have one before I mute myself again.
Sorry.
Yep, that's okay. The issue is that it's something that I hadn't realized until I sat down to think about it, and I think that members realize that. So I just want to make sure that that's out as a comment, that maybe people don't care if we don't have a seat on the board through high school, and some people don't care, but I just wanted that to be known. And the other thing is I will, again, just add a request for the budget. If you have numbers, there is no need for people to guess what you had considered what is relevant to Raymond and what is not relevant to Raymond. If you have those numbers, please just put it out there. There will be people that read it, there will be people that don't, but I think we should have all the information that's out there, and without having to nitpick and try to recreate it ourselves. So thank you guys. I'm muting myself now.
She's muting herself. That's cute.
And the next number is 7302779.
Caitlin.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. This is Caitlin LaCase again. I had a question. I was going back and looking at some of the information from the 2014-15 withdrawal process. And I guess I should also say, and I know that this is not an easy thing the committee has been doing, so thank you all for your work on it. One of the things that came out of that committee was that we estimated, and I think many of you that are involved in the budgeting this year were involved in it last time. We estimated that the Raymond taxpayers would pay, possibly see a possible 25% increase in taxes if we withdrew. and I was wondering why that has changed this time. Why you think that's changed?
If I weigh in on that, we never really got to the point of having a final budget pulled together for that, because partway through that is when there was a renegotiation on the cost share, and so then it was stopped at that point. So a final budget was never pulled together for that withdrawal because that withdrawal effort, because it didn't get to the point of having a final budget done.
Okay, so the initial budget, though, I guess showed that it would be perhaps 25% increase. I just think that's important.
Budget, there was initial that says, in a worst, in a worst case, it could end up there, but at that point there was not a chance to flush out the budget. So it was looking at what is the potential for the absolute worst case. But the other thing that came into play is our student count was much higher at that point.
Sorry, the number of students Raymond had total was higher at that point than it is now?
Yes.
So it's interesting because one of the things we pointed out last time as well was that our current trend of declining enrollments would likely result in cuts to staff and services. So I'm just wondering why that's no longer a concern as well.
Well, I mean, the demographics keeps changing a little bit, but at the point that we did that, our school population was higher than it is now. It's, and looking at where the trends are, that, looking at what the new enrollments are and things like that, that's where it's kind of a moving target. But at the point that we had that last withdrawal effort going through, our school population was higher, and I think that we had a high. One of the other things that came into effect was we had a higher secondary school percentage, so the tuition line was much higher at that point.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
And then the next is 650535033.
Hi, it's Grace Levitt again. I wasn't going to call back in. I was going to wait and try to attend another meeting. So I'll hold off on some questions, but I really felt I needed to address a couple of things. Talking about the school budget votes for the RSU, the process is there are hearings before the budget is presented to the two towns, the RSU folks, and certainly anybody can attend those open meetings and give their input there. And certainly I would encourage people to always do that. That's the best time to say that you think there should be more here or less there. So everyone has access to that. And then at the budget hearing itself, everyone has access to attend that hearing. And if they choose not to, that's on them. And so if that budget passes at that hearing, then both towns, anyone registered to vote in each of the towns, has to then vote on that at the ballot box. So I guess I have to take issue with the statement that the budget is pushed down our throats, I think were the words, something like that. And I just would ask that we maintain a respectful tone in all of these discussions, because it certainly has not seemed to be terribly respectful at times. And some of the comments that some of the committee have made, and I'm sure you're tired and you're putting a lot of time into this, and I understand it, but still I would hope we could maintain a respectful tone as we're doing this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. I'd like to just add that I've tried to explain that there is a window of opportunity between, say, January 1st and April of 2021, which the board and the public will have plenty of time to review and approve budgets.
I'm talking about the RSU budget process. I think it was Rolf, the chair, that said that the budgets get pushed down our throats or something like that. Am I muted again?
No, you're still there.
Okay. So I just have to take issue with that, because everybody has access to, first of all, giving input to the RSU board as they're developing a budget. they have access to attending the budget presentation itself. And then, of course, they vote in usually June this year. It happened a little differently, I realize, but so did a lot of other things. So again, that's just not a fair portrayal of the process in my estimation, just to be sure that that's clear for anybody that's listening. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, Grace. My point was that at the end of the day, it comes down to that referendum vote on there. And even if we had a situation where all of Raymond said no, Wyndham has the votes to overdo, to eliminate our vote anyway. So in the times that we have, I have been at those meetings and someone gets up and tries to reduce an item, they get lambasted.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They really, and they are really put upon for trying to create or bring a question up or something like that if it does not agree with where they were thinking there. So that respect side does not swing both ways.
So I would just say I haven't witnessed what you just described, but again, there are school RSU board hearings to give input as the budget's being developed. Once the budget is developed and presented, yes, there's still an opportunity to be at that hearing to vote it up or down. But it's kind of late in the process because a lot of work has already gone into developing that. So I can't speak to somebody being lambasted speaking up there. I haven't been to one recently just because of my work schedule, but I've certainly attended them very routinely many of the years, as I did when they were just Raymond. And so, that's to be spoken to at that moment. To go to withdrawal for that reason just seems really, really extreme in my opinion. And again, there are many fiscally conservative people in Wyndham that vote down any sort of an increase in taxes and are not necessarily supportive of providing the needed resources for schools. So, I talk about very unlikely scenarios that everyone in Wyndham would vote for something and everyone in Raymond would vote against it. Again, we're talking about a lot of speculative kinds of things here. So as somebody said before, there are no guarantees on any of this. And I would just suggest there's no guarantee that the amount that the withdrawal committee is saying that somehow we would be saving by doing this. There's no guarantee there as well. Thank you.
I'd like to say, Grace, that I know for a fact that people get lambasted because it happens to me several times. I was booed, told to go home, that I'm from Raymond at a public meeting a couple years back. So, and this is not the only reason why we're going to withdrawal, but it does happen. And there's been quite a few times that Raymond people have been there and have seen it. So I know for a fact that it does happen.
Okay, there are no more raised hands right now.
So there is someone on the phone that has been trying to get in. The last four digits are 4596. I think it was just difficult for them to tell if their hand was raised or not. Okay. If you're able to unmute them.
Yes, I just asked them to unmute.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Anna Keeney. I just have a couple of questions, and I think they're not really budget-specific questions, if you don't mind. Though I do have one really quick budget-related question. I'm just curious if since we joined the RSU, has there ever been an instance of the town of Raymond, the Raymond citizens voting down the budget at all? Do you know?
I don't know.
I think we did.
I'd have to look to see, absolutely, but I know that it was very close to 50-50 on one of the votes, and I think that was about 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that information. I appreciate it.
We can certainly go back and look in the voting tallies, because that's all the voting numbers are on the website for the last. How long, Sue? 10, 15 years?
As far back as I
for a
can
long
find.
time. And I was also just kind of curious. I know, because we've been a larger RSU, when we've had staffing shortages, statewide, like we're seeing now, we've been able to flex some resources so that we don't have to sort of suspend or cancel out any of the services or programs that we offer. So I'm just curious if there's been any thought into what sort of the backup plan might be should we find ourselves in a similar situation. You know, I acknowledge it's probably going to be a school board decision, but it's just something that I'm curious if we've thought about as we go through this process.
You want to take it?
I mean, staffing, because staffing is, you know, is always an issue, and availability of teachers kind of ebbs and flows over time. We've, you know, there's been times in the past where it was a flush market, and times in the past when it was a tight market. You know, and a lot of that comes down to, if we kind of look historically, when Raymond was operating on its own, the quality was such that we had teachers that were lining up to try and come here and not go to other places. So a lot of that becomes gets down to the desirability of the environment that you create, as to whether we'll be able to attract the staff, the teachers, and things like that. So a lot of that would come from what we end up making it, and how attractive it is then, because it was not an issue that we had even when it was lean markets back when we were operating by ourselves.
And then the last question I have tonight is just, I know we have, I think it's somewhere around about maybe 10 students each year from Jordan Small Middle School that are able to participate in middle school sports that we don't offer at Jordan Small. They're able to go in and participate with the Wyndham Middle School teams. So I'm curious if there's a plan in place to make sure that those students aren't losing those activities as well. I think we've had swimmers, we've had indoor track, we've had field hockey. I know it varies a little year over year, but just curious how we're going to keep those activities.
I know in the past, Wyndham has allowed Raymond to come down. I know one of them was wrestling. They did. They also invite over the kids from Gray when they didn't have enough either. So I think, and this was a question that came up on Facebook, I think that would be a great talking point between the two schools to see if we can continue with the students down there in the sports programs, or check and see if we can get a rec program or some kind of program going up here. But that's one of the comments that did come up too, is they said that there would be a lack of parent volunteers to be able to run the programs.
I'd also
I mean, I can speak from personal experience. I have a daughter who plays hockey. There's not a lot of girls that play hockey. So we have experienced firsthand what it's like to not have enough to form a team and to lose out on those opportunities because of it. Thankfully, you know, being part of the RSU, we've been able to find enough students because we have a sort of a bigger pool to swim in, if you will. So just a point that I was curious on. So thank you for your time. I appreciate the answers.
Okay, and I think that I'd like to add the comment that Raymond, as you probably know, created a recreation department, and part of the philosophy behind that was to pick up some of the slack that might be created in the school system.
Yeah, I just kind of, for me, goes back to the fact if we have 4 kids that want to play field hockey, we only have 4 kids that want to play field hockey. We can't field a rec team even with just 4 kids. So, you know, being part of this RSU, they still get to participate within their communities in these sports. So,
Anna, can I ask you something? Is it just a certain grade, or is it just middle school? Is it 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th? What exactly is it?
It's middle school, so I think it's 6th through 8th. I don't, and I'm not entirely sure. I could dig a little for you if you want, Teresa, but I don't think it's opened up to 5th graders. Just, you know, traditionally statewide, middle school is 6th through 8th.
Okay, so it's the league that doesn't allow the 5th graders in. Then I think is what it is, right? Because
I honestly am not sure what part of it is.
Okay.
But that's, and like I said, I'm happy to ask some more questions if you'd like. dig around a little bit, but those are just the ones that I know of.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so there's no one else with a raised hand right now.
And then I'll just remind people then that the next meeting will be September 14th at 6 o'clock. September 17th, we have a meeting that will be at noon. That is going to be at the East Freeman Fire Station. So that will be a in-person meeting. So if people are interested in going to that, please send an email to the rsu.withdrawal, or no, it's, what's the web address, Teresa? It's the email address.
rsu.withdrawal@raymondmaine.org.
And to get a seat reserved there, because we based on the spacing and whatnot, we can only have about 30 people in attendance at that meeting. Similarly, on the 22nd, we'll at 7 o'clock, that meeting will be at JSMS. And again, there you'll be able to have more. We can get up to 50 there, but again, send an email in to let us know of attendance at that, so we can kind of keep an eye on that to make sure we don't have to hold people at the door or whatever. And then the next meeting would be on the 28th, and that will be at 6 o'clock. So questions can continue to be submitted through the email, and I know there's been a number that have been in and out, and there's been answers that have gone out through there. And there's what we're doing as well is to kind of consolidate that list of what the questions are and the answers, and then that will go on the website as well.
Ralph, may I just ask one quick question? Actually, Dan may be the one to answer this. And I certainly understand there even could be an executive order that trumps this question. I'm just wondering if capping attendance at a public meeting, if that's any sort of violation of the public meeting law, or if we do need to offer Zoom capability if we were at capacity. And again, just a question. I also completely understand we're in very different times right now.
We're in the mode now where the governor's order trumps anything there. That's
okay. Thank you.
That order specifically exempted some of that stuff, because when she put when the phasing put in and said, okay, no more than 50 in an inside event, 100 in outside events. So that because that is that takes priority over anything else right now. If once that emergency order is lifted, then everything changes back again.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure with the 30 people we were okay.
Right. But these are not hearings that are required by statute. These are informational meetings that the withdrawal committee has chosen to organize. I think the one remaining statutory public hearing would be the one before the Board of Selectmen, which needs to be at least 7 days prior to the election. So on that one, I think we should just probably make sure that if there's going to be a restriction on, if it's going to be in person and there's going to be a restriction on space, I think it would probably make sense to have some form of remote participation, just to make provision if there's more than 50 people that want to participate.
Okay, thank you. It was purely just a question. That's all, not anything, just a question.
All right, no other questions. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see people at the next meeting. Thank you all.